Penny Melville-Brown, and I'm here in San Francisco at the start of my adventure cooking across 6 continents. I've spent a week here in San Francisco with the Lighthouse organisation and the other 2 winners of the Holman Prize. That's Ojok from Uganda and Ahmet, who actually comes from this amazing city. One of our first experiences was cooking at the One Market restaurant. I was working with Mac, the pastry chef, and he showed me how to make these terrific peach galettes. I'll post the recipes in a few weeks' time. And we also went on a blind walking tour of the city, led by our guide, Jerry. He told us lots about the history of the city, and particularly the 1906 earthquake and the devastation of the fires that followed. We had a really fun time on Ocean Beach, and it was just to prove that we'd been close to the Pacific Ocean. Ojok had some real problems with his flight and getting here on time, but he arrived in time just to show us all his skills as a beekeeper. Ahmet and he had a really great time sailing in San Francisco Bay, while I was still slaving over a honey cake in the kitchen. And this week the baking blind tour started for real, and I kicked off by making a seagrass cake with passion fruit mousse with Louis from What China Live. At the Brown Sugar Kitchen I made authentic soul food with Tanya, so it was barbecued shrimp and grits, waffles and fried chicken. Yesterday I learned all the science of making sourdough bread at the Cheeseboard Collective with a huge team of people. And here's a picture of Toby, my videographer, just to prove he's here with me. And later on today we're flying off towards Costa Rica, where I've got some really adventurous recipes waiting for me. And I'm here bunkered down in a hotel in Costa Rica. I left San Francisco just nearly a week ago, and my first activity when I arrived was to talk to the National Association of Blind People here in the capital, San Jose. We were welcomed by a medley of their most popular national songs. And their organisers made some fabulous welcoming speeches. They wanted me to talk about my life and what every other blind person really wants. And then on the same day we drove over 6 hours through absolutely torrential rain to Tamarindo over on the Pacific coast. And one of my first visits was to the local farmers market, where it was just fascinating to taste all the different vegetables and fruits that were on offer. And equally interesting were people who had moved to Costa Rica from all over the world and were selling the food that they made themselves. But I spent most of my time out in the jungle at Noam's fine dining restaurant, amidst all the wildlife and the rain. While Noam lives in the jungle, we were driven back and forth from the hotel by his friend Victor. We spent 2 days developing different recipes, cooking them up and testing them. All of this hard work created 2 evenings of dinner services for Noam's guests. It's been a hugely stimulating week learning new ways of cooking, but it's also been pretty exhausting and damp, and the drive back to San Jose was hair-raising with all the rivers overflowing and the floods. But the drive was entirely worthwhile, because when we arrived we had the most fabulous supper cooked by Chef Mario, and he featured a couple of the most classic and famous national Costa Rican dishes. I'm so sorry not to have been able to do the final cooking class with the Association for Blind People, but we had to listen to the warnings about the floods, and that's what it's all about. Rain, rain, rain. We were so lucky to get out of Costa Rica last week. If we'd left Tamarindo 1 hour later, we probably wouldn't have made the airport in San Jose for another week, all because of that tropical storm Nate. But here we are in Virginia Beach, just a stone's throw away from Norfolk, which is the largest naval base in America. I've had some absolutely amazing cookery experiences here, and it's been a complete change from all the restaurant type cooking that I was doing in San Francisco and Costa Rica. I've been learning from home cooks like Kelly, who showed me lettuce wraps, which sound so simple but were absolutely delicious, and she made a great banana bread too. That classic that we all know and love, fish pie, seems completely unknown here in America. But I was really lucky because Kate, who is from England, showed me how to make it with one of their local fish, puppy drum. But it's the naval connections that have been most dominant here. I met up with Wendy and her Royal Navy captain husband Stuart, and together Wendy and I made her own smashing mushroom soup and her traditional Irish wheaten bread. Wendy and Stuart also bravely let David, who is another Royal Navy commander, and myself cook a big celebration lunch to mark this year the centenary of the Women's Royal Naval Service. It's amazing how many former Wrens married Americans and are now living here in Virginia. But we were also reminded that military life has its own hazards and consequences. Most poignant and heart-tugging was listening to Jo. She and I originally did our officer training together back in 1978. She later took over my job in Naples, where she met her US Navy husband, Nick. In 2008, Nick was diagnosed with ALS, that's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease. We know it better in the UK as motor neuron disease. Jo, her family and many others are all now hugely active campaigning to raise awareness about this fatal condition and increase support for the patients and their families. Military life is all about working hard and playing hard, but I don't think any of us signed up for dying hard like this. I'm all packed and ready to fly back to the UK. A short break for washing, sleeping and catching up. And then the next leg, China, Australia and Malawi. Just fantastic. So those were just the highlights of the first half of the Baking Blind World Adventure. You can see all the actual videos on the YouTube channel, but come back next time for more highlights, because we've got the near fatal accident in Australia with a full air-sea rescue drama. We've got Chongqing, the largest city in the world and probably the most exciting. And finally Malawi, where the people were just wonderful, but some of them were equally facing death situations. So lots to look forward to. Come back then. All the recipes are on my website, www.bakingblind.com.